Hey everybody, Josh Sheridan here with the Barely Legal Podcast.
They demand my alter ego, but I won't go because
On today's show, we have Magnanimous Brewing, which is Michael Lukacina and Charlie Meers. Did I get those right?
Yeah, man.
Awesome. Close enough. Well, my wife's Basiglio, so I'm the Italian names I'm getting better at. But you guys are not new to the scene of the world of beer, but this is a new venture for the both of you, right?
Yes, sir. Yep.
All right. And now I know I've seen the location, and what is it, on the corner of Florida and...
Okay.
Yeah. Right as you come from underneath the overpass, it's right there on the left-hand side. It's a great spot. I'm trying to remember what was there before you guys.
So we believe it was the Salvation Army's worship center.
Okay.
So there was like a fenced-in basketball court out back. There was a whole chapel with this gigantic vaulted ceiling. There were some classrooms, some offices, and a kitchen in there. So there was a lot of different things that they could have been doing in there. And also, like, having church,
Did you keep the chapel and the basketball?
So the landlords turned the basketball court into a parking lot.
Okay.
The landlords are the owners of 717 Parking.
Oh, yeah.
And then we kind of tore apart the classrooms and all that kind of stuff, but we kept the kitchen area. So
right.
In the future, we could use that as
a little bit of a serving or like a food prep type of situation.
We just weren't ready to take that part of the project on right now. And the chapel kind of got ripped down, and we had to put a large walk-in cooler there for our beer and our, maintaining cold storage.
Right. So the voice you're hearing talk to me right now is Michael or Michael. How do you like it?
Mike's fun.
All right. Yeah. So I kind of want to know about you guys before we get into brewing and everything like that. I had Clay Parkinson from New World Brewery on earlier this week. And as I was telling you before, I'm actually an attorney during the day. And I had this gnarly domestic violence deposition that ran super long. And I had to run straight from that into here and interview him. And I forgot to even ask him any questions about him. I just talked about New World Brewery the whole time. So I'm not going to make that same mistake with you guys. So Lukacina, is that Italian?
Actually, it's Czechoslovakian.
Czechoslovakian. Okay.
And my family usually pronounces it Lukacina, but recently we had a plastic surgeon do some work in the family, and she's from Czech, and she said it's actually Lukacina.
Oh, so there you go.
So yeah,
I fucked up and said something right the first time.
Yeah, it's crazy.
So are you a Florida guy originally, or?
Yeah, born and raised in Florida my whole life. I lived in Boca Raton in South Florida till about 2002 or 3, and then I moved up into the Riverview area. I was working construction. The company I was working for needed like a West Florida manager.
Sure.
And then slowly started working my way out of Riverview towards closer to downtown and Ybor, started making some friends, started getting into craft beer, made friends with the guys at Cigar City, and eventually started working at Cigar City.
So I'm gonna back up. Your parents, what did they do?
My mother and my father are both retired now.
Okay.
But my father was a Palm Beach County Sheriff's Officer. And
really?
Yep. And my mother was a letter carrier.
Were you the proverbial child of a police officer? Was he having to come pick you up to the spots?
No, me and my brother were.
It's like the son of a preacher.
I think we got lucky. We didn't have to pull that card, or
sure.
didn't really get called too much. I'm sure there was maybe a couple incidents.
Yeah.
But, most of the time we flew under the radar.
Yeah. Now you said a brother?
Yes.
Just the two of you?
Just the two of us.
What's your brother's name?
His name's Christopher.
Is he around?
Yeah. So he actually, right now he's in Tampa, but he's a traveling ultrasound technician.
Oh, wow.
So he'll take a contract for 3 to 6 months in a different city, come back to Tampa, hang out for a little bit. That
would be pretty cool, man. That's like a touring musician or something. Go hang out and wherever for a couple months, come back. That's not too bad.
He's homeless, essentially. My parents have a condo in Tampa and a condo in Boca. So he kind of just goes between the two in between his contracts. He just got back from Portland, Oregon, and he's headed out to Daytona on Monday.
Very cool. I'm going to ask you guys to lean in a little bit more when you're talking, just because I want to make sure that we're getting on everything that you're saying.
Sure.
So, were your parents drinkers? Was beer in the household growing up? Was that something that you were acquainted with early on? There's usually two histories I run into. There's the kind of Christian, no alcohol, or the, liquid lunches, Thursday. Both my parents were school teachers. And so Thursday afternoons, all the teachers would come over the house and just get shit faced. And then all weekend were parties watching your parents get shit faced. But back then it was Budweiser, Coors Light, Miller. And, there was no, I don't even know when would you say craft beer, that whole movement really started to take shape? I mean, it's relatively within the past 10, 20 years, right?
Yeah, probably it started really taking hold around 2006 is when you started seeing it that's when I kind of got into it. Not that has anything to do.
This is Charlie talking right now. You'll get used. No, you don't have to introduce yourself each time, but people get used to. Well, those who know you will know who's talking. But I just want to make sure.
I'm the one that sounds like he's almost from Georgia.
Okay.
I am.
They both look like Vikings, by the way. If you've never seen them. Anyway, go ahead.
But yeah, around about 06, I think is when it started growing like crazy, and I think it was growing double digits every year up until 2016. And
it makes perfect sense. And I've had this conversation. I had it with Joey Redner. I had it with Greg Spadaccini about the coffee, but the wine model that you see, it seemed ripe for these other areas, the craft coffee, the craft beer. I mean, there's such a model there that it was amazing to me that it even took as long as it did to take off the way that it did. I wonder why 2006. I mean,
there's a lot of, Budweiser is a big part of that.
Yeah.
The other big guys, Budweiser did a lot of damage post-prohibition.
Sure.
Buying up breweries and kind of stifling them, just kind of forcing them out of the market.
It was almost a monopoly type of situation.
1982, I think there was something like 62 breweries or something like that in the U.S. We're close to 7,000 now, probably more than 7,000. Yeah. But there was just there was nothing there. So it took a while. It took your Anchors and your Sierra Nevadas and guys like that. Moving forward to kind of create this space for everyone.
And you were in it right away at that point?
Yeah, I started volunteering at breweries when I was 21. Actually spent my 21st birthday at Sweetwater.
Well, where are you from, since you sound like you're from Georgia?
From Cedartown, Georgia.
Okay.
Don't go there. There's no reason to be.
Now, how are the liquor laws and all that? I mean, because they used to be pretty stiff up there, right?
Oh, yeah. They still are. Cedartown, I think, Polk County specifically, Georgia. I think there was no liquor allowed until 09 up there.
Polk County. I just think if it's a Polk County, it doesn't matter what state it's in. Yeah, it's you're going to be facing some pushback.
Yeah, it turns out our 10th president makes the worst counties in the.
Yeah, there you go. There you go.
I don't know. I kind of hated beer when I was growing up. I had a Southpaw Light when I was 13.
Yeah.
And there's no reason to drink beer. And then it was 19. I was living in Athens, going to school up there, and somebody gave me a Sweetwater 420. And I was like, I get it.
Athens is a different country, right? Yeah.
Athens, East Atlanta, and Savannah are the only places that I would ever recommend anybody live in Georgia.
I've been to Savannah a couple times. I've never been to Athens, although I'm a big REM fan. So, that the connection there. And I went up recently to the Pabst Fest up in Atlanta, and you'll probably know it's the 4 Points, or there's a cross right, and it was Mastodon and Run the Jewels, and Pabst Blue Ribbon. It was the best time ever. And I was I had no idea Atlanta had this. My only knowledge of Atlanta before that was fucking traffic, and it was great. And I kind of had known, because my cousin is a assistant director up there. There's a big film, up there, which is pretty cool. But I mean, Atlanta's really becoming just a major deal, in a lot of ways. So anyway, I digress. So how old of guys are you?
I'm 39.
Okay.
38.
Okay. So there you go. All right. How about you? Tell me about your parents, your family.
So my parents owned a furniture store.
Okay.
Growing up. I started working there when I was 13.
Okay. So you had some background in running your own business. I mean, you had some. Yeah,
to a degree. Everything I had to unlearn a lot of and I'm still unlearning a lot of their poor their poor habits in regards to it.
Yeah.
I'm always straight line trying to get to things, and sometimes that's not necessarily the way things work.
Yeah.
As far as accounting and whatnot.
Yeah.
So I learn something new every day.
That's the way it is. I mean, I in my family didn't have anybody else, at least that I'm aware of, that owned a business. Started this firm in 2005, and I fucked up. Everything that I know is because I've screwed it up and had to fix it. So it's hard won, hard learned, but I'll never make those mistakes again. So I'm sure it's probably similar to what you're looking at. Any siblings?
Yeah, got 2 sisters.
Okay. Are they here up there?
They're both stayed home. I was the only one that
younger or older?
They're both younger.
Okay, younger sisters. I just feel like as a guy, it's better to have older sisters.
Yeah,
Because
probably.
then you can go hang out with their girlfriends and they think you're cute and all that other stuff.
Yeah,
Didn't happen.
My sister's friends, I did not think were very cute.
Yeah. Apologies to Charlie's sister's friends. Who I'm sure are listening.
There's a shallow pond up there.
There you go. Yeah. So how did you guys first meet each other?
2011 at Cigar City.
Okay. Now, I had Redner Sr. in here, was one of my early guests, and that was the trip. I don't know, was he involved at all when you were there?
He was there every day,
Yeah.
pretty much.
Talk about a guy who just has a preternatural understanding of people and business and just the human mind. Like he's like some kind of shaman, you know, and then obviously Joey is also brilliant in his own right, you know. So how was that as far as learning the trade and kind of cutting your teeth? I mean,
it was awesome. I was actually the tasting room manager there, and Mike worked he was on the bottling line at the time. And that was one of my favorite things on Sunday mornings. Like I'd go in and clean the lines, and Joe Sr. just be there, just talking about whatever was going on.
Anything he's talking about, you want to listen to though, because it's like,
100%.
Yeah, about this story or that story or anyway. So, and what were you doing there?
So I was just working on the bottling line. Like,
Okay.
that's right after I started getting into craft beer. So I was just trying to soak it all up. Like I had an into the brewery through some friends. So I was really just discovering this new wave of craft beer and like learning a whole new skill set because I was working construction and I was previously like playing in bands and stuff like that. So,
So you have background in music too?
Yeah.
Oh, sweet.
I went to Full Sail and got that wasteful degree.
Sure.
Worked in a recording studio for a little bit in Miami.
Oh, wow.
But yeah, so it was for me like, you know, I really didn't know who Joe Sr. was, and Joey was just kind of like the owner of the company.
Sure.
So I was really just learning all this stuff about Tampa right around then as well, and soaking it all up. But it was right time, right place for me, you know.
Was this the location right over there off of Dale Mabry? Yeah. Did you guys know Mike Maida at all? He was partner at the Brew Bus with Redner, so he's related to my wife's family somehow. Anyway, okay, so you guys started working there. You said 2011,
Right.
All right. Now you said you're married. Are you married?
No, I have a girlfriend.
Okay, and you got 2 kids, and another one on the way.
Yeah, my wife is like 37 weeks.
Oh wow.
Or something like that.
Oh wow. What are your boy, girl, boy?
Jude is the oldest boy. He's 12. Then my daughter Charlie, not named after Charlie, but man, it depends. Depends what's going on that day. She's 3, and she was born on Thanksgiving, which was also my dad's birthday that day.
Okay.
And then baby Elliot is going to be a girl, and she's due in March.
Very cool. Very cool. Yeah. I mean, kids put a whole different pressure on you, you know, to get her. Yeah, it's cool. I mean, it's the best thing ever, but you know, my comfort level with screwing up things, especially financially, is, you know, much more severe.
The boy was, he's 12 now, but he's been interesting. And Charlie, the 3-year-old girl right now, she's just so much fun to be around.
Right.
So I'm just focusing on that.
Right.
At the moment,
Right. Now, going into the craft beer world, I mean, has kind of the remote plan always been to do your own thing? I mean, or is that something that came along later?
To a degree, on my end at least. Like I always kind of, I'm not good at taking direction a lot of times.
Yeah.
I kind of have my own way of doing stuff. So it just, for me, it made a little bit more sense in my head, but I didn't know how to get there when I got in the business, you know, 16, 17 years ago. So I wouldn't say it was part of the plan. It just sort of, you know, we just talked about it one day. And
right.
It became the plan.
Right. How long were you guys at Cigar City together?
I was there for just over 1 year.
Okay.
Then I moved on to another brewery.
Where'd you go from there?
Seventh Son.
Okay.
Their original location in Dunedin, Florida.
Okay. And what about you?
I was there for 7 months, and I had to come back home to do some family things.
To Georgia?
Yeah.
Okay.
Went up there for about 1.5 years and then moved back down to work for another brewery.
Which one did you work for?
Founders.
Okay, of course.
I covered Florida for them.
Okay. And you guys reconnected when you came back down here?
Yeah. I mean, we stayed in contact
sure
the whole time.
When did you guys start having discussions about working together again?
2016, I think, is when we first started talking about it.
Okay. And, you were telling me a little bit about the adversity you're facing this week with furnaces and leases and labels and all these other kind of things.
Yeah.
I mean, tell me a little bit about, the plan to start your own brewery, I mean, all the stuff that goes into it. I mean, you got to find a spot. You have to decide on a name. You have to figure out what your identity is going to be. What are you going to make and all this other stuff. So, how did that work out? I mean, did you guys just have a bunch of discussions about this is what we want it to be?
Yeah, lots of talks over lots of beers at various locations around Tampa.
So was that part of it, trying to decide, like, and forgive me, my naivete in this area. I don't know as much as probably a lot of the people that you talk to on a day-to-day basis, but I mean, there's a lot of different types of beers that you can brew. And is there, we want to do these and not these? Is that kind of discussion had?
Well, I think because we knew how long it was going to take for the project to get going, the last thing that we were really worried about was the beer.
Okay.
And right now, the things are changing so much. So if we would have in 2016 told everybody that we were going to make beer A, by the time we opened in 2020, that beer might have not been in vogue anymore.
Sure. Yeah.
So we kind of waited for the product development part of it to kind of happen like really quickly at the end. And more important for us was starting to get the brand out there and the name out there, even though we didn't have a location or any money or a legit business. Charlie has a very, very large network of people around the country from all his previous jobs that we started collaborating with, going to their beer festivals, pouring our collaboration beer with them to try to just, I don't know, meet people, talk to people, gather information on their story on how they opened their brewery.
That sounds amazing. That sounds like how long of a period of time are we talking there?
Since I think the first one we did was Voodoo Fest or Good Vibes up in Meadville, Pennsylvania. I was the sales director at Cycle Brewing in St. Pete at the time, and they we had agreed to do a fest, but when I left, Doug didn't want to do it, the owner. And so they're like, hey, do you guys want to sub in? We're like, yeah, we don't have any beer. We're just like in talks to get all this stuff done. And they're like, all right, we'll brew it for you. Just tell us what you want brewed. And that was how we kind of got started with everything.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So how many different places? I mean, a bunch of trips, like.
Yeah.
We started getting somewhat smart about it and stringing a bunch of friends together on these things. Like, I drove out to San Diego.
It's like again, it sounds like a band. Like we're going to go on an East Coast tour, a West Coast tour.
There's a lot of similarities.
Yeah.
When you could travel and do stuff like that, it was very much kind of like that.
Sleeping on people's couches and drinking their beer.
Slept on the Bottle Logic guy's couch. Slept on Magnanimous couch.
Yeah. Almost fell asleep in a pool a couple of times. Normal stuff.
Where did the name come from?
It's a word that I've always dug since I was like 13.
Yeah.
I was watching wrestling one night and I heard Triple H say Magnanimous, and I looked at it and I was like, that's kind of what I try to do anyway. So it's like I've always just had that word in my head, and then brought it up, and like I don't even think we mentioned another name.
I always kind of had this like image. There's certain breweries that we both kind of like to have like metal imagery, and they're kind of like metal breweries.
Right.
But I didn't want to do that because I felt like you might be like pigeonholing yourself.
Sure.
And when Charlie brought that word up, I just thought there could be so many different directions you can take it in. A lot of breweries tend to name themselves after a geographic location.
Yeah.
Or it's like an adjective in a thing, like
Green Bench or
So I just thought it was a little bit outside of what everybody else was doing. And when I was reading all these different definitions of it, I thought it was really cool.
Yeah.
And also kind of was almost like, if everybody was a little bit more magnanimous, it'd be better. And also for us to try to be magnanimous, and maybe have the business be like that,
Well, definitely. Yeah. So this is something, a concept that, just understanding the words in context, like I was talking to Greg Spadaccini, who does Spatty's Coffee. He was telling me about the ethical brewing, coffee beans, and all this, and talking about how the farmers never see any of the money for the coffee beans and all this other stuff. And it was this whole concept of running an ethical business, treating your employees right, treating your clients right, making the world better, even if just a little bit. So I definitely get that from the name. So it's super cool. As far as some of the other big ticket items that you're looking at, I mean, equipment wise, you're talking to me about a furnace. Like, what sort of equipment are you looking at when you're brewing your own beer?
Yeah, so it's all stainless steel. I mean, the
sounds to me like it's got to be super fucking expensive.
It's very expensive.
Yeah.
It's very expensive. I mean, there's a lot of different ways you can start a brewery on a budget. Me and Charlie, just because we worked at so many breweries and we kind of already knew what we wanted to do.
Right.
We felt like we can kind of take a risk and jump right in on a bigger system.
Right.
And we're a 15 barrel system. It's about 465 gallons of beer per batch.
Okay.
But we again leaned on some people that we've met through Charlie that were friends of ours. They had an extra brew house lying around. Joey Redner had some extra tanks lying around. So we were able to get some really, really nice equipment. For really cheap, and kind of on like a really cool handshake kind of deal in some situations. And yeah, it was expensive to start our operation. We couldn't have done it without a lot of these like handouts and handshake deals.
Sure.
But yeah, I mean, it's, we couldn't get an SBA loan. We got a lot of advice from a lot of different people, like I was saying earlier, and everybody went about it a different way.
Right.
We had gotten some funds from some friends and family members. And when we would go to banks to get SBA loans, they were like, hey, we got $350,000. We need another $650,000 to start this business.
Right.
And they're like, no, the money needs to be yours.
Yeah.
Because we got it from somebody else. They didn't care.
Oh, so Brad, someone posted a meme the other day that said, the bank says I can't afford a $900 a month mortgage payment, so I'm going to go pay a $1,500 a month rent at an apartment. It's just the thinking with those loans are so backwards. And
it's crazy.
And I also have to mention, selling them on a craft brewery, if they're taking into account what the business is going to be. Now, hopefully that's not going to be as tough of a sell, because clearly that's becoming a movement here. Yeah. But if you're the first people through the door, I'm sure it's a little bit harder to get that. It was
kind of frustrating to hear stories. Like there's a couple other breweries around us that opened up right around the same time. And they're like, yeah, all we had to do is get a lease and we got our money. And so instead of me and Charlie being kind of like the sole investors, the sole owners here, we have a lot of different people involved.
Sure.
And I mean, but that's just how it had to work out.
Right.
And, it's fine. Everybody's pretty much hands off. We have a couple other guys that work with us at the brewery, and we're all really super focused and work really well together. And the investors and stuff aren't really.
Well, I'm digging it. This never really kind of materialized in my thinking about it before, but how similar it is to the music world. Because in a way, the way you're talking about the brewery, it reminds me, like I'm a big punk fan, like Discord and a lot of these other do-it-yourself, record companies. Literally, like they tell stories about folding the sleeves for their vinyl and posting their posters and putting on shows in someone's garage or their kitchen and everything else. And I mean, when you look back on this, when it becomes a success, it's going to even taste that much more sweet because of literally every part of it is, blood, sweat, and tears on your guys' part. So that's really cool. So how long did the build take?
Man, we got that building in August. Actually, when we were in Meadville for that first festival, we got the call from our real estate agent saying, like, as a cannon was going off in the background.
Yeah, everybody was slamming PBRs and shooting rifles.
Oh, jeez.
It's Northwest Pennsylvania. They've got a certain amount of charm up there.
Yeah.
But we actually got the call that we got the building, and then various things. We had an architect. They backed out because it wasn't going to be like a $3 million architect job.
Yeah.
Then we had to get another one, and then had to get zoning, and then
contractor backed out. We had to find another contractor. So we had a small rent-free period that, in hindsight, should have been enough for us to kind of get permitting and stuff like that, because we had our architect, we had our contractor.
What months and year are we talking?
This is between August and January
2019?
18 and 19.
Yeah.
Because I know what happens in 2020. So I'm just this is like my testicles are going up in my stomach thinking about this.
Oh, well, so we were supposed to open our contractor said it would take 120 days to get everything going. And it took about, I think, 358 days.
Yeah, we finally got after we got our contractor and architect figured out, we finally got our permit to start construction on October 1st of 2019.
Yep.
And then we finally got our, CO or whatever to open like October 1st of the next year.
Yeah.
So it took twice as long to do the project. I mean, there was definitely things with the pandemic in there, but there was other things that probably shouldn't have taken that long. I mean,
how are you guys? Are you guys negative thinkers, positive thinkers? Like until I started taking Prozac, I would have been like, this is a sign from God that I'm not supposed to be doing. I mean, did you guys question your path or?
I think we have like really dark sense of humor. So while our first reaction is a lot
just
of
laugh,
shit like that, you know what I'm saying, where we're like imagining horrible things happening to people and we say it out loud. But then after that, you know, there's like, hey man, we can get through. Plus just having a partner, I think
that's big. That's big.
I remember times with my wife, I was just like, kind of like, you know, in our bedroom, I'm like, this isn't going to happen. We've just wasted $350,000 of our friends' money. You know what I'm saying? And it's just like, and you know, Charlie's like, no, man, we got this. Like, I'm going to make phone calls. And there's times when he's just like, you know,
you kind of trade off who's being the strong one on a given.
And then we got another partner in, this guy Austin, who actually was a founder of Hidden Springs Ale Works.
Okay.
He had wanted to lead to start his own brewery, so we were like, hey man, just come help us.
Yeah.
So we got this other guy, along with our friends and stuff, kind of like helping us, so we could dump these like negative vibes out and stay positive, you know.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
It's things just had to get done, so it's like, you know, you don't really have a lot of time to wallow in it.
Well, and with certain things in life, and I don't know if you would agree that this was your experience, but sometimes it's like you don't have another choice. It's just like, this has got to work. There's not a plan B out there, you know. And so, you know, at various times in my career here, I'm just like, God, this is awful. I want to do anything else, but it's like, yeah, but you can't do it. I mean, you know, I'm not going to go play basketball for somebody or whatever. I mean, this has got to work. So you just got to persevere.
Yeah. I mean, the way we looked at it, we had gone and, you know, worked for other people and spent so much time in the industry working with other people, for other people to get ready for this moment. Right. You know, so we couldn't go back to working for other people. Right. We'd already made up our minds. So
exactly. Exactly. 100%. So the other thing that's kind of cool and is kind of where Tampa's at. And I'm trying to, I don't know enough about, you've been to all these other towns where you've, you know, worked these breweries. And I'm wondering, is there kind of a roadmap for where you see Tampa going with its breweries? Cause I mean, I know that they're doing the tours, and I mean, it almost seems like, you know, I don't know if you know Devin Brady, who's doing the Peninsularium deal, the Crab Devils thing.
Oh, I live right across the street from there.
Yeah. So I think they're going to start having a bunch of craft breweries do stuff out of there. And I mean, it seems like every month, every year, there's a handful of new ones. And if they can keep that up, I really feel like this could be, you know, an Asheville type of situation. I mean, I've been to Asheville a couple times in my life, but it wasn't until about 2 years ago when I went up there with my wife, and all of a sudden it was like, where the fuck did all this stuff come from? And literally it's everywhere. And I was like, this is like Sonoma or Napa, but for beer. And of course the weather I like a lot better in Asheville than here's not blazing hot. But I mean, do you think that this could go that route?
Yeah, actually, I think we're far ahead of a lot of really good beer cities in the country currently. Like, you know, Asheville's great. I go up to Asheville probably once a year, but I think we have better breweries than them in general. And it's not because I'm from here. Like, I'm, you know, like, I think Chicago is probably a better beer town than us, even though no one really talks about it.
Would never even think of Chicago as a beer town.
20.
I'm sure. Just because I don't know about it doesn't mean it's not.
But nobody really talks about it as a beer town. But I think, like, it's weird because we're a southeastern city, and all southeastern cities are sort of built as sprawls versus traditional
central.
Like, you know, Portland, Oregon's known as a great beer town, but everything's kind of packed in. There's easy ways to get everywhere.
Sure.
And I think that'll come with this. You know, they're extending the trolley and everything. It's just we're in a weird spot because you kind of count the entire Bay Area. So, you know, you're 45 minutes from one good brewery to the next.
Right.
But I think Tampa is, we're way ahead of where a lot of towns were, and it's only 11 years old really at this point.
Well, I bought this building in 2017, and it was right around the time that Armature Works opened up, and I just watched as, you know, every couple months a block closer it creeps up, and I'm like, at some point, you know, the river downtown, you know, the Davis Island and Harbor Island and Hyde Park downtown, if it can kind of close that gap with Armature coming up the river, Tampa Heights, then you've got just this long procession that really could connect it and build it. And I was driving the crosstown coming through, and I do this every day, but I'd never look up, and I was just looking at the Water City, the skyline. I was like, that skyline wasn't there 5 years ago, 10 years ago. It
wasn't there a year ago.
So it's and I hope it does it. The thing that I always worry about is the weather, because summer here is just fucking brutal. But I mean, that makes you want to go get a cold beer. So I guess that works in your favor. So when did you guys officially open your doors?
October 2nd, October 2nd of this year, 2020.
So right when stuff kind of started opening back up. Now, what was the vision for the place? Was it solely going to be just distribution? Was it going to be where you can go there and drink at the place? Is it food, music? I mean, what's the ultimate vision of what the experience of going there is going to be like?
It's a tap room. So it's,
okay.
I think ideally if we could, max out and sell everything out of the tap room, that's what you hope for.
Right.
Distribution is definitely going to be a part of it, but I kind of see distribution as a ways of marketing to bring more people in.
Sure.
Not as a way, like if you're living off distribution, that's as a small brewery anyway, that's a tough road to hoe,
It's like living off record sales as a small local band. Yeah.
The margins are just different. It's a lot like, I don't know. I feel like you can tell your story better when you first open, really get to know your product better and stuff too. Like when you just have it there with you, when you're sending it out that early on, there could be things happening that you don't know about. So.
Right. How many employees do you guys have?
7, 8.
Okay. And what kind of hours are you guys putting in? Crazy, I would imagine.
There a lot.
I think when we were under construction, it was a lot more intense just because we were both working other jobs doing that. So it was like, 2 years, pretty much 7 days a week, nonstop, working at other jobs and going there. And now since we've opened and we have employees and partners, we're always on the clock, kind of,
Yeah.
But we're able to, like, I'm able to leave and go home and watch my kid when my wife goes to work because Charlie and the other guy got it,
Yeah.
So we have a really good core group of people. And we trust everybody. So we're trying to kind of have a little bit more balance, but we're still answering emails and stuff calls all the time,
Do you still love it, or is it beat the passion for it out of you?
I feel like we're not even close to where we want to be yet.
Yeah.
I mean, I feel like we're successful already.
Yeah.
Because we got open.
Sure, yeah. Despite everything you just discussed,
exactly,
COVID and the architectural,
the passion's still there. There's still so many things that we want to do. There's beers that we're producing now that we won't be able to release for like 18 months and stuff like that. So like it's still every day you want to get up and go to work.
Do you guys have the same taste in beers or different? I mean, what do each of you bring as far as
I think we're like there's a lot of things that we have the same tasting on. Charlie likes a lot more like classic kind of like styles and stuff, and like I don't know, sometimes he likes higher ABV stuff. Depends on what we're doing.
Yeah,
I'm in a Doppelbock trend right now. I don't know where it came from, but it happened.
How about you?
I mean, I honestly, for me, it's kind of whatever we're brewing and we're selling, kind of, that's kind of what I get into just because I'm kind of responsible for like recipe formulation. And then, me and 2 other guys on the brew house kind of make everything happen. So I guess I kind of really go in a rabbit hole in a specific beer.
Sure.
Until I think it's maybe okay or I know how to fix it, and then I'll move on. When I kind of don't want to think about it, I'll drink somebody else's beer, like an old fashioned or something.
Yeah.
But as far as styles, I mean, it's kind of what we produce, like lagers and hazy IPAs. That's what we're mainly producing right now.
So I was going to ask, what are you putting out there right now? Is it just those 2 or?
We have some other styles besides that, but the lagers and the hazy IPAs are the things that we really want.
What makes something a hazy IPA?
It's appearance, essentially.
Okay.
And
is that an ingredient or is that a way of making it? Or
it's a combination of things. So there's like some yeast that don't like to drop out of solution. There's also high content of like high protein malts like wheat and oats. Also a high rate of hopping. Also water chemistry. So there's a lot of different things involved. Some people think it's just like an unfiltered beer,
right?
But there's actually a lot of different things. When they're done very well, they're very flavorful and very aromatic and very soft, and they're fun to drink. When they're not done very well, they're still bitter. They're maybe sweet. They're just hard to drink.
So, I talk to a lot of musicians on this show and a lot about music, and there's only 12 octaves, but it's just how you play them. With beer, is there flavors that haven't been produced yet? Like, what is the new ground? What is breaking new ground in this world look like for you guys?
It kind of goes all over. Like, it's pretty much limitless because there's always a new yeast strain, or I think most grain is pretty much accounted for. There's probably something that'll come out at some point, but it's mostly accounted for. But there's always a new hop or 2 coming out every year.
Right.
Yeah.
There's a lot of combinations you shouldn't make.
Does it involve fruit, like some sort of?
I mean, I've had.
Well, I mean, there was the IPA movement. All of a sudden IPAs were everywhere, and then everything had a fruit a tangerine this or whatever that. And not that those are bad, but it just, you can go too far with it. It would seem like to me. Now, what about, there's the ingredients, which obviously plays a role in what it tastes like, but what about the process of making it? Does that impact the flavor, impact the texture, the color, and all these sorts of things?
I mean, just the ingredients, but then how you treat them, like anything, like cooking anything. So if you really aren't paying attention, you don't know what you're doing, it's not going to come out very well.
Sure.
And the higher quality and stuff like that, but the process is very important. There's some people that just like to, kind of take shortcuts, and, that might yield a result that the customer wants. But when you kind of don't take those shortcuts, it's a little bit more rewarding. And there's all different types of equipment. Every brewery has a different setup, and that's going to yield a different output. We have a direct fire kettle. There's Copper Tail has steam jackets. When I worked at Seven Sun, there was an electric
coil or
what do they call
filament
it?
or
So I mean, there's different ways to heat everything, and that's all probably going to take into account the outcome.
What about storage? Is storage an issue at all with beers, like whiskey or wine, or just keep it cold?
Just keep it cold.
Yeah. Okay.
Our bourbon barrels that are full of beer, they stay warm, but they're fine.
But once it's packaged, you should probably keep it cold, and it'll last a lot longer for you.
Now, you mentioned the kitchen. Do you think there's some point where there might be food that you can?
Yeah, I mean, that was like a bonus when we saw the place.
In case we get COVID around, you're going to want to be able to give people grilled cheese so they don't catch COVID.
There's a hood in there. The fire suppression system looks like it's from the 70s, but there's a hood in there. And there's some bones in there that we can probably just turn it around pretty quick. But just getting the beer right, getting the tasting room comfortable, and kind of getting our feet under us was enough of a challenge to throw food in there too, and have an executive chef and all that other inventory and stuff like that. But right now we're just rotating through some food trucks, and once we get our shit together a little bit more, we'll probably look at bringing a partner in that's food like conscious. Like we like food, but
right.
I'll probably bring somebody in that's their thing to manage.
And how's the reception been? I mean, are you getting good feedback?
Yeah.
I mean,
Great.
Yeah.
And have you taken it to any festivals? Have you kind of try to extend your coverage of who you're getting it out to?
Yeah.
You have lots of festivals before COVID. There hasn't been very many. Actually, I think there was only one, and it wasn't one that we wanted to take part in.
Sure, yeah.
Down the road a little ways. But yeah, I don't know, probably 20 different festivals. We've been in Chicago, Oklahoma, all over Florida. California, we were in one. We weren't there. Somebody else had to be there. But yeah, we've been all over the place doing.
So what are unconquered lands for you guys? Like you mentioned that we haven't done a bunch of stuff that we want to do. I mean, what does that look like? Multiple locations or greater distribution or?
Yeah. I think, not to be greedy or anything like that, but if we can continue the success that we think we can, it might be smart for us to open up some other locations. Maybe not full-blown breweries, maybe not a large production facility, maybe just other smaller locations, or maybe a retail spot, or just another tap room, something like that. If those opportunities present themselves and we're ready to take them, we will.
Are restaurants serving, like, can you go to New World Brewery or some of these other places?
Those would be goals of ours too once we get distribution. So once we get distribution going, that's been like an ongoing thing for us. We're trying to work on finding a distribution partner that's right for us. And there really isn't one out there. So we're working with Brian Schrader to try to get a distribution plan together that's right for us. We're currently going back and forth on some stuff because there's a lot of rules in place between, owning a brewery and owning a distribution company that we're trying to navigate correctly.
Right.
But that's definitely the next step for us. Well, back up a little bit. We are using a mobile canning company right now to package our product. Okay. So right when we opened, we want to have cans, with our label on it from the get-go. Like Charlie was like, you need to have a face on this thing. That way people can, enjoy the beers there, but then take them with you. Yeah. Instead of just in like in a crowler or growler. Yeah. Each beer is like personified kind of.
Well, it's become like collectibles in some way. I mean, the labels, like you mentioned, the metal, I always have conversations with people about what metal music was able to achieve just based off of album covers. How many people found bands not based on what they sound like, but because they had
Iron Maiden, man, people probably thought they were like the most brutal band ever.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. And then conversely, my friend and I have a Manowar joke that we always go back and forth because they're always like these buff guys that are naked on it's like, so, but your face, your label, your
Your brand.
your brand. Yeah. It's so much more than what it used to be with beers. I mean, like, Brian Schaefer from the skate park at Tampa, they did their moat water through this, and that's a cool little thing. In this deck, they even brewed some of the beer into the glue, I think, when they put the plies together. Yeah. But it's becoming not just something that you consume, but something you collect. And I think that's so cool. I mean, that's one of the things about it that I think is so great. So mentioning the mobile canning and all that other stuff.
That was something that we really put a lot of thought into, and that we picked up from working from breweries that were doing that. So we didn't have the money to buy our own canning line. So we lease, essentially this company comes out and cans for us and we just pay them. We do that a couple times a month. Mm-hmm. And we recently looked at the numbers and we're like, hey, the amount of money we're giving them is the amount of money it is like a payment every month on our own canning line. It won't be as nice or as fast, but so we just pulled the trigger and put the down payment on our canning lines.
Okay.
So that I feel like we're a little bit ahead of schedule.
Do you have a consultant? Do you have like is this just you guys figuring this out, or do you have someone kind of saying
this is us arguing, talking annoyingly every day?
It's crazy because you're just flying blind. I mean, you are because obviously there's other people that have done it, so you can kind of piece together some sort of a plan, but you just never know. And then the other thing that gets really difficult is looking at other people, because everybody's journey, at least in my experience, is their own, So you guys could look at Redner or look at one of these other things and say, well, they were here at this point, or they did this. Should we do that? Yeah. And it's hard to kind of feel comfortable in your own identity. I mean, is that something that you guys think about, or?
I mean, like I said earlier, I think we got a lot of advice early on about how to open, but a lot of that advice was bad advice. People were like, oh, you'll get an SBA loan. Don't worry about it. We didn't. So now we're I
have an SBA loan for this building. Catch yourself lucky. You got to you got to have a million different insurance policies, and they want proof of your insurance constantly. Well, that's what I was going to ask you with this furnace and all that stuff. Is the insurance insane? Or?
So the brew house, it's the direct fire burner on the brew house. And what happened was the manufacturer doesn't design them like this anymore. And they said this isn't the reason why, but the direct fire burner, it just disintegrated all the metal underneath the kettle. But the brew house is actually our friends, 18th Street up in Hammond, Indiana. They're like, hey, you guys can use this and then pay us later, or we'll work something out, kind of like a handshake deal. So we called them up right when we saw the problem, right? And they're like, oh, we'll call the manufacturer. So we've been playing this game between all three. We're getting it fixed. Part just came in today. We're going to fix it this weekend. We didn't lose that much time. Sure. So we don't have insurance on that aspect. I guess if the roof caved in and destroyed it, it'd be different. Yeah. Or if, let's say 5 years down the road this happened and we had all these orders that needed to go out, it might be a different situation. Right. But because this happened, we're not really brewing 7 days a week. It wasn't that big of a deal. It's frustrating though. Has
COVID impacted you? I mean, aside from the opening date, does it interfere with the type of business you're wanting to be doing? Are you having to limit people coming in? Are you not having events that you would want to throw, or?
I don't know. So I don't know if we would have done events our first year anyway, just because it's kind of hard to say because we've been busy, but we haven't been uncomfortable. Maybe that Saturday before the Super Bowl was a little iffy because there's a lot of people in town, but it's the cool thing about being in a state that's open, but in a big city is that we're open, but everybody behaves. Yeah. I'm pretty sure this isn't the way it goes in Palatka. But we haven't really had any issues with that. But we don't know what we're missing out on because
our occupancy is 190 people, and I don't even think we have enough seats to fit 50% occupancy.
Well, you guys back up to Franklin too, don't you?
Yes.
And that just seems like it's had not false starts, but it just seems ripe to almost become like a mini, I don't want to say mini Ybor, but I mean, that street there, I mean, you could just pack, restaurant, because is it Angry Chair? What's the other,
Hidden
the cider? Yeah.
And then there's a kombucha place that just opened up, and there's also a meadery. They make alcohol from honey.
My buddy Jalal has the Muay Thai place right across the street, street back over there.
From the Muay Thai.
Yeah. So it's a cool little street, and what was the hall was open and then closed. And are they looking at putting anything else there?
I don't know, man. It'd be cool if there was a steakhouse or something that went in there. Yeah. That place was pretty neat just to go hang out in.
Well, but I just think that it's a weird little street that's not super busy. And could use a lot of pedestrian,
Yeah.
walking, brewery to brewery. There was it Foundation Coffee that was right there for a minute?
That's the kombucha spot now.
Yeah.
So
So-
we have coffee at our place now. So
That's right. Thank you for bringing that up, because I told you, driving by every day, I saw Magnanimous Brew and then I saw coffee. And at first, that's what I thought it was. So talk to me a little bit about that. I mean, that's kind of an interesting pairing.
So been friends with the Gingerbeard guys for
Yeah.
a while. They operate out of Poorhouse, and they had offers from other folks before to do sort of that same thing, just kind of take up a little space in the morning. And we started talking to them before we opened and kind of put it together, made the numbers work. And so they run Magnanimous Coffee for us, and they have a mobile espresso counter. Comes in, they roll it in the morning, they roll it out at 2 Monday through Thursday and 12 Friday through Sunday.
That's brilliant, though, because you're introducing two different markets to each other.
And
That's
we
kind of
sell
a
beer
Trojan
at
horse.
7 a.m.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, that's okay.
Yeah. Well, we get a lot of third shift folks that
Yeah.
comes in. Like I told them from the beginning, it's like, find out if there's somebody keeps coming in every day at 7:30 and drinking. So like, get the story.
Yeah.
It's like, if that guy's coming from the hospital, that's cool. But if that guy woke up and came here, let's.
Yeah. It was. I used to go. What's Daily Eats on Howard? I go there, and every time I go there, everybody was in scrubs, and they're like, everybody at was it TGH just got off shift and comes there and has breakfast. So that's definitely a market for that.
Yeah, I mean, we're not having like droves of people come in, but we have noticed that when we do like new can releases or have something out like on a Friday or Saturday, if we put out 7 a.m, people are coming and grabbing on their way to work and getting a coffee too. So our non-existent beer sales that we're having from 7 a.m. to 3 p.m. every day are pretty good now.
I love that shit. There's these happy accidents not that it was an accident, but sometimes you just kind of stumble into.
Well, yeah, we didn't talk about our potential beer sales in that time period. We just talked about like, hey, we're already paying rent here.
Right.
Like, why not just have these guys sell some
Maximize,
coffee? Like,
for
make
sure.
some money off coffee. It wasn't make more money off beer.
Right.
So it's definitely like a happy accident.
So what are your flavors that you're putting out right now? Like if people want to order, like how do they get stuff? Do they go online? Do they just stop in? Obviously your hours are what?
7 a.m. to 10 p.m. every day.
Okay.
Yeah, and if the crowd's bumping, we'll stay open a little later.
And then online, can you do online orders, and can you do like memberships, or not memberships, but like a recurring order type of situation?
Nah, the way we kind of have it set up right now, we do have curbside or in-store pickup if you want to do online orders. And it's just through if you go on our Instagram or Facebook page, it's through our POS. So I don't have the exact.
Yeah.
There's a lot of numbers involved in that thing. But we have that as an option, and then come in, drink something, or you can just grab a 4-pack out. We have a lot of people that aren't comfortable just hanging around. So they just come in and grab a case, walk up, pay for it, leave.
That's the other thing too. I hit the Publix at Channelside the other day, and I'd never been there before. And I parked have you ever gone to that Publix?
Oh,
Yeah, I go there all the time.
So I parked in there, and I looked up, and I was like, holy shit, look at all these people that live here. Publix is just living off of this building.
Yeah.
And as that creeps closer to you, as I'm sure that it will, because I mean, like even right here across the street at Good Samaritan Inn, I hear that they're knocking that down and putting stuff up. So, and north of Armature, whatever those buildings are. So you're going to pretty soon have a lot of people living around you.
Yeah, we're starting to feel it. I mean, even those office spaces at Union, I think Pfizer just inked a deal with them to be in there.
Yeah.
We had an office come over and ask for a keg of coffee and a keg of beer to keep in their office.
Yeah.
There's people who live nearby that are just thankful that there's another brewery there. So when their friends come into town, they can kind of hop around and walk there.
Right.
It's when we found the location, we didn't really knew it existed. We've driven by that building so many times, but then once we thought about it, we're like, yeah, exactly. There's so many new homes being built, apartments being built, that we're going to be somebody's neighborhood meeting spot. And that's working out for us.
That's awesome.
Plus that turn coming off Florida, there's just people all day, every day, looking at our lights and our barrels and our tables out there. So
yeah. I mean, it's a great spot. I can see the future of that spot, and I'm hoping Franklin does what we're talking about. And obviously, even though we're a little bit in, I still feel like we're on the beginning stages of where this could go, and it's just super exciting. Well, I couldn't be happier for you guys. I think it's great what you're doing. I'm going to taste the product here in a second, but I wish you guys the best of luck. And I know you guys have been so busy giving me your time to come in and talk to me.
Appreciate it, man.
Yeah,
all right.
Thank you.
All right. Thanks, Mike. Thanks, Charlie. It was good having you in.
Yes, sir. Thanks.